I'm here with Patrick Michel, a planetary astrophysicist at Nice Observatory. He's also a director of research at the CNRS, a French acronym for your National Scientific Research Organization. And arguably for this interview, most importantly for my sake, you are the principal investigator for the European Space Agency HERA mission that is going to go back to Dimorphos and Didymos, the binary asteroid visited by DART, NASA's DART mission. I believe it was just last year. I'm not certain. And that's due to launch. The HERA mission is due to launch in October 7th on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral in 2024. It'll take 2 years to make the journey. And Patrick Michel, what do you hope to gain from the HERA mission's visit back to Dimorphos and Didymos?
Yeah, what I hope is to better understand the collisional process, meaning DART made an impact on a small asteroid, and we want to understand the outcome and make sure that we understand how collisions work in space so that we are better prepared to deflect asteroids using an impact, and we better understand also a process that played a key role in all the solar system history.
And what you were telling me is that for us to wipe out the risk, right now we understand, we know of the risks posed by asteroids which are 10 kilometers in diameter and above. They're being tracked. We know they're not an immediate threat. And the big question mark is about the asteroids which are not known if they're going to hit Earth, that are undiscovered, which are 140 meters or less. And tell us what, we're here on the beautiful Côte d'Azur. It's not a great day, but it's still a nice view here overlooking Nice. So what would happen if a 140 meter asteroid impacted off the coast here? What would happen?
So 140 meters is a threshold in terms of size for damages at the scale of a region or a big city. So if an asteroid of 140 meters in size was making a collision on Nice, it would make damages going from Monaco to Cannes at least, or even more. So we know only 40% of the total number of these objects that cross the orbit of the Earth. So we need to find the 60% remaining ones. Of course, the advantage that their impact frequency is still low, every 10,000 years on average. So hopefully we have time to discover them all and make sure that no one is threatening us on a short term.
But tell us, you mentioned in the interview just now that there's still a disconnect between the political world and the scientific world on this issue. Here in France and in other countries, we know that there's a planetary defense office now set up by NASA that has contact with the politicians in Washington, D.C. But could you speak to what you think needs to happen, what we need to do so there's more cooperation between science and government?
Yeah, we need to have a better recognition in some countries, and for instance in France, that planetary defense is an important topic, because even though there is no identified threat, we know that eventually on the long term it will happen, and we need to get ready before we need it, simply because all the steps that we need to do in order to have a robust plan need decades. And so we started in the early 2000s, even at the United Nations level. We started with DART and HERA to have a first deflection test, but we still need to keep working on that so that eventually we have a robust plan for the future generation, because even though the risk is very low for our lifetime, it will happen. And we don't want them to have to improvise. I mean, the dinosaurs would have liked to have space agencies and people like me taking care of it. And it's exactly the same thing like a pandemic. A pandemic is a very low probability thing with high consequences. And we see that when we are not organized, it's very, very difficult to face it. Well, if a big asteroid comes to Earth, it has really large consequences, and we don't want to be faced with the same situation, like what are we going to do? So what we are doing right now is to make all the efforts, to make all the steps that are needed in order to better know these objects, to have a deflection plan, and also to have an international coordination so that when this happens, we know who decides, who to contact, and how to face it.
And right now, even if we know that there's an impactor that's going to hit in 10 to 15 years, if it's anything less than 10 to 15 years, we're not going to be equipped to do anything except perhaps launch a nuclear weapon to just completely destroy it, which is risky. Why is a nuclear weapon risky when dealing with a near-Earth impactor?
Well, because first of all, it's absolutely forbidden by international treaties to launch nuclear weapons in space, so we would have to remove these treaties. And as long as we are not sure that this is because an asteroid comes to us, we never know what we can do with weapons in space. So that's why we try to avoid to have to do this. Then the other thing is that if we know it too late that an asteroid comes to us, we need to make sure that the deflection technique we send will succeed. And space is hard. Many things can happen in space. It can fail. So we need to be able to have enough time to even resend something in case the first thing fails. So that's why the good thing is that we don't have any identified threat, so we have time to prepare all this. And that's why we need to prepare and be able to anticipate so that once an asteroid is identified to come to Earth, we have time to make all the actions that are necessary to eventually deflect it.
But we're not going to have a complete survey of potential near-Earth impactors of 140 meters or less until 2045, you told me.
Something like that, maybe a little before, but effectively it will take a few decades to have everything discovered. And between now and this final step, we live with this uncertainty, but the risk is very low. We have to remember that I use my motorbike every day and I take more risks than getting an impact on my head. So I would say we have a level of risk to accept, but we still need to work and to prepare this so that eventually we know whether we are in a situation that is really risky or not.
Well, thank you for your time today, Patrick, and good luck with the launch next year with the HERA mission. We'll be following that with interest. And thanks again for speaking to me.
Thank you.